Is The Sims 5 doomed? Well, if EA don't fix one thing, then I think it could be. And that one thing is actually pretty big, because it's their reputation. Hear me out. New details have emerged about The Sims' future. And interestingly, what EA said about The Sims 4 is perhaps even more telling than what they said about The Sims 5. Notably, that The Sims 4 is going to continue to be supported and even run alongside The Sims 5. It not only makes it very likely that The Sims 4 and The Sims 5 are going to feel like very different games, but to me it also signals that EA is either worried that The Sims 5 could fail, or that they plan to tap into an entirely different market with the game. Alongside these announcements, people cheered for the return of stuff packs, and there was also a bit of intrigue around The Sims 4's third expansion pack in a year. But the hype seemed to stop at The Sims 4, and it didn't feel like it quite transferred to The Sims 5. Yes, we don't have many details. Yes, it's still a long way away. And yes, people are concerned about its direction. But then what I feel is the real reason that no one's hyped for The Sims 5 hit me like the bus that hit Regina George in Mean Girls. It's EA's reputation. To put it lightly, I would say it's pretty bad at this point, and I think EA absolutely need to fix it, or else risk The Sims 5 being more of a flop than Journey to Batu. Yes, I went there. Now stay with me as we step back in time a little bit. While the original Sims, as well as Sims 2 and 3 were adored by fans, it all seemed to go wrong with the launch of The Sims 4, which was rushed for release after the game's direction changed very last minute. Why the change? Well, EA had experimented with SimCity 5 back in 2013, making it largely multiplayer, but also requiring an online connection to play. But good luck playing, because the servers couldn't actually handle the game. It wasn't long before Cities Skylines by Paradox Interactive swooped in with their own single-player city-building game and yanked the market share away. Likely fearing a similar disaster with The Sims 4, the game ditched its current development direction, which was similar to SimCity 5, and went back to a more traditional model. However, its rushed release didn't excite or spark joy for the player base. There were no pools, no ghosts, no basements, and no toddlers. And many loved features of The Sims 3, such as the open world and the color wheel, were missing too. This lackluster beginning didn't go unnoticed. And while to their credit, EA did work to add many loved and expected features back into their game over the years, the rushed release served as a big hit to their reputation. While many would say The Sims 4 is a decent and enjoyable game today, myself included, many also wouldn't. And for players who played both The Sims 4 and its earlier predecessors, the earlier games are almost always viewed more favourably. To this day, people want more. And while there are lots of problems that people can point at in The Sims 4, I think the two most damaging to the game's reputation are its performance and its perceived value. It doesn't take a seasoned player to know that the game is pretty buggy. And while I get it in the sense that new content can cause problems, I feel like my Sims are getting stuck or needing to be reset way too often these days. Also, why is it that they still place dirty plates on high shelves and then can't get them off? In addition to the problems caused by general bugginess, there's also very real reputational damage caused when releasing content with significant problems. I was actually shocked with the state that My Wedding Stories was released in 2022. When I say unplayable, I mean it. And outside of a video on the world, I didn't make content on it until it was mostly fixed. While other packs have had problems, the release of My Wedding Stories in particular really stuck with me and honestly lowered the respect I had for the game at the time. I didn't understand how a pack that people have to pay for could be released in the state that it was, and why the release date wasn't just pushed back. I would think that any monetary gain EA got from releasing the pack early would have been insanely outweighed by the reputational damage. Personally, it made me lose a lot of confidence in the Sims games, and now every time new content is released, there's this little voice in the back of my mind that's wondering if it's going to be another My Wedding Stories disaster. And you better believe this caution translates to The Sims 5. Now, there won't be a barrier to entry for The Sims 5, which is set to have a free-to-play model. But don't get too excited, because a now removed job post was highly suggestive of an in-game marketplace. And so it's pretty clear that EA will be trying to make huge profits from in-game purchases. Now, there's a big reason why the idea of in-game purchases are making players very worried. Sims players have been calling for a new game that combines the best of the best from the franchise over the years, wanting better and more meaningful gameplay similar to Sims 2 and 3, and open world and color wheel from Sims 3, and the build mode from Sims 4. But with the Sims 5 positioned to run alongside the Sims 4, it's clear that it's not a replacement, and I don't think it's going to be the game that the player base was asking for or expecting. And it's this that then makes the motive behind The Sims 5 seem very questionable. Is EA looking to make an incredible experience for players, or are they just looking for another cash cow? Because if I had to put my money on it, I would say a big portion of the player base would currently say cash cow. And this is after the player base has already dropped a huge amount of cash on The Sims 4. My gauge on a regular player in the Sims community is that they feel a little bit taken advantage of monetarily. And I think this comes down to the perceived value within the DLC, including expansion packs, game packs, stuff packs, and kits. A large part of this is because The Sims 4 has taken traditional packs from The Sims 2 and 3 and often split them up into multiple packs within The Sims 4. A glaring example here is how not long after releasing the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, they came out with the My First Pet stuff pack, which simply added rodents, and more recently the Horse Ranch expansion pack, which added horses. You could then compare this to The Sims 3 Pets, a single expansion pack which gave you cats, dogs, and horses, as well as lizards, turtles, snakes, and birds. And you can very quickly see why Simmers felt a bit shortchanged in The Sims 4. You could argue that in some cases packs being split out allowed for more depth into each component of it, but while I would say in some cases this is true, I would also say that in some cases this is questionable. For example, Island Living was released with no underwater exploration, and Horse Ranch without unicorns, both of which were included in The Sims 3. To be fair, I should put up a bit of a defense for EA in that sometimes I felt that honing into one specific feature did work well. For example, I think occults in The Sims 4 having their own pack, which then allowed for skill trees and a new world, did add a lot of value. But overall, I think the value offering of The Sims 4 isn't quite up to par, and additionally, the straight up demand that the game has on a player's wallet is significant. While I can't speak for everyone, I think I can safely say that a lot of people are under no illusion that the game is expensive for what it provides. Currently, there are 14 expansion packs priced at $40, 12 game packs retailing at $20, 18 stuff packs at $10, and 25 kits at $5. Putting it all together and excluding the base game, which is currently free, and you'll be spending $1,105. In EA's defense, for most pack types there are semi-regular sales, so by waiting for them, you could get the game and all the packs for a solid few $100s cheaper, but that doesn't really change the fact that the game is expensive. And a bigger problem than the game simply being expensive is that in many cases I don't think that the packs provide value equivalent to what someone pays for them. With so much dilution of content across multiple packs that previous iterations of the game grouped as one, it can leave you as a player feeling a little bit icky. I actually feel that overall Sims 4 packs were slowly increasing in the value that they offered throughout the first couple of years. While expansion packs were relatively consistent, early game packs like Outdoor Retreat offered much less than say Vampires or Jungle Adventure. Similarly, early stuff packs like Luxury Party or Cool Kitchen Stuff offered barely anything compared to Tiny Living or the Paranormal Stuff Pack. But if we ignore some of the more obvious PR nightmares of late, such as My Wedding Stories and Journey to Batu, then I think a big shift came with the introduction of kits in March 2021. They instantly felt like a money grab, with kits focusing on one of three elements, being gameplay, create a sim outfits, or build and buy objects. Sorry, did I say 3? I meant 2. Because after Bust the Dust, EA seemed to label gameplay kits too much effort and instead stuck to the 2 that they could churn out more easily. While cheap, kits offer very little. And it's somewhat obvious that they're about 33% of a stuff pack, if that, which then retails for 50% of the price. Not only that, but they're pumped out so quickly that at this point I just feel that they fatigue the community. I'll be honest, there are some kits that I really enjoy. Pastel Pop, Book Nook, Little Campers, yeah, I enjoyed them. But in 31 months of kits existing, we've had 25 of them. And I'm just finding them exhausting. I very rarely get excited when they're announced anymore, and to me they feel like constant cash grabs rather than meaningful content that I should be excited about. I really do think that on the whole, kits have been damaging to The Sims 4 as a brand. They might offer a quick cash injection for EA, but their value offering is objectively worse than expansion, game, and stuff packs. And it certainly didn't help that up until very recently it felt that kits all but replaced stuff packs for no other reason than that they allowed EA to make more money. On that note, I do think a return to quality stuff packs will serve EA well, and I am quietly optimistic about the upcoming Home Chef Hustle stuff pack. Overall though, less value within content leads to a community that feels underappreciated, and ultimately makes people less loyal to the Sims brand as a whole. I think any extra money that EA made in the short term is absolutely not worth it when factoring in the reputational damage, and if we want to talk profits, then I do believe that a lowered reputation does hurt a brand's money-making potential in the long term. I also think that now, more than ever, EA should be trying to get their reputation in as good of a place as possible. Not just because they're gearing up for the launch of Sims 5, but because they're also about to have some competition. As I think most people know, both Paralives and Life by You are competitor games in development. And this is great. Sims has enjoyed a monopoly in the space for a long time, and it's possibly this monopoly that's led to, dare I say, complacency. Personally, I'm excited to see both of these competitors, and while Paralives is yet to have a release date, Life by You has announced early access for March 5, 2024, so just next year. But there's a little bit more to the Life by You story. Not only is it being made by Paradox Interactive, you know, the same company that makes City Skylines which killed off SimCity, but it's also headed up by Rod Humble. Rod played a massive role in the development of The Sims 2 and The Sims 3. And it's pretty clear that with him working on Life by You, they do intend to take The Sims head on. I also think that the reputation towards The Sims 2 and The Sims 3 is far better than that of The Sims 4, and I have no doubt that with Rod heading up the new game, we are in for something good. I also have no doubt that people's favourable views towards the early Sims games will translate to them wanting to try out Life by You. To be perfectly honest, my main concern for Life by You at present is the graphics. But overall, I think there's a lot of passion going into the game, and I am excited to try it. Now, EA is likely less thrilled about Life by You than I am, and I do think that now, more than ever, EA should be trying to add value to their content and leave people with a positive feeling. They should be playing the long game, improving gameplay and the game as a whole, rather than going for quick and easy money through kits, which ultimately offers very little in making the game better and more fun to play. To give some credit to EA, I do think that they have done some great things over the years, particularly in ensuring that The Sims is a truly inclusive game and doing a lot to represent many different cultures and minority community groups. And to me, this really does establish goodwill and a good positive sentiment towards the brand. There have also been a few recent wins. Mainly I think that the Werewolves pack was done really well, and I thought the Spa Day refresh was also an awesome and much needed value add that left me feeling quite good about EA. But overall, it's time to step up. Yes, just like Jessica Alba did in 2006. But maybe better, because that movie has 21% on Rotten Tomatoes. EA should be looking to add value to the game in every way that they can, fix the multitude of bugs, and make gameplay a smoother, more enjoyable, and less frustrating experience. They should also undertake more pack refreshes to add value to existing areas of the game. While I think that Spa Day was great, I also think that refreshes could be rolled out in smaller but more frequent updates. Maybe simply add birds into My First Pet stuff, or add pet careers into cats and dogs. Maybe more lots can be added to existing worlds, because we all know that 5 lots in a world is just not cutting it. Look to add long called for base game updates, like adding in new traits, or allowing us to set makeup and accessories across multiple outfits in one go, saving everyone a boring 10 minutes in cast applying the same makeup across 5 different looks. It's also interesting to look at the Horse Ranch expansion pack here, whereby I felt, considering the content it included, the pack could have been sold as either a loaded game pack or an undercooked expansion pack. As we know, EA went with the undercooked expansion pack, but I hope that in the future the mindset changes to offering it as a loaded game pack. It might mean a bit less money in the short term, but overall in the long term, I think it would be very healthy for the game, and it would make the community view the game and the brand more favorably. I do understand that EA is a business and that they need to make money. But The Sims 4 is an incredibly profitable game, passing $1 billion in revenue in 2019. That was 4 years ago, so I'm pretty sure that number would be much higher now. Despite The Sims 4's rocky launch, I think a lot of people came to and tried the game because of the great reputation of the franchise as a whole, but I also think it's pretty clear that The Sims 4 has really lowered that reputation. The game is still incredibly buggy, and from what I can gather, EA is viewed as valuing money much more than valuing their community. Going back to The Sims 5, the fact that EA want The Sims 5 to run alongside The Sims 4 certainly means that it's going to be a very different experience, one that no one really asked for. While there aren't many details about The Sims 5 yet, to me it feels like this game is not being made to serve the community, but rather to become another cash cow to drive more profits for shareholders. I feel like the prevailing sentiment is that The Sims games are expensive and lack value, and that while costing a lot, the game is also buggy and not quite up to scratch with where it should be. And I also feel that in recent years, EA has really doubled down on putting profits before the community, particularly with kits, but also with bugs going unfixed, botched buggy releases, and with the stripping back of value added within DLC content, to then come out with The Sims 5 that's an iteration of the game that is not what the community has asked for, and for it to potentially be a very big cash grab loaded with microtransactions, it seems like a very big ask from EA to essentially turn to the community and say, trust us and come on board, especially after many players are not all that happy about The Sims 4. I simply don't think that EA has built up enough goodwill with players and created a good enough experience to then make this shift a success. And right now, I don't think that The Sims 5 is viewed as an awesome new game in the franchise, but rather viewed like EA growing a third arm to reach into your pockets once again. It's because of this that there seems to be very little hype for The Sims 5, and I think that there's so much concern around The Sims 5 because there's an inherent distrust between EA and the community, and in particular, EA's reputation for being very profits driven at the literal expense of the community. If EA wants The Sims 5 to be a success, then it's time for the pendulum to swing the other way. It's time to put the community before profits. EA needs to prove to its community that it cares about them, and that they are passionate about the game that they are making, rather than just the money that people spend to play it. They need to prove that The Sims 4, which is an expensive game, is worth the price tag, and they should be looking to add value to the game and improve their reputation at every opportunity. This means putting in huge efforts to fix bugs and making the game a more enjoyable experience for their players. It means undertaking pack refreshes and adding extra features to DLC that lacks value. It means listening to the big things that the community wants, such as more traits and adding them into the game, not just in paid for content, but in the base game. And it also means packing value into future releases, and ensuring that when people look at what they're getting, they inherently think that it's worth the price tag. The question behind every addition to the game shouldn't be how much money can we make, but rather, does this add real value for our community? Ask if content is truly ready for release, or if it needs a bit more time to ensure that it runs smoothly. Ask if it's actually a fun and enjoyable experience for players, or if there are elements that are kind of boring and can be improved or made better. Ultimately, fix The Sims' reputation and restore the player base's trust in the game, and then release The Sims 5, because only then do I really think that The Sims 5 will be successful.